Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and I know that there was a delay for a second, but my mic didn't unmute automatically like it normally does, and I was watching it to make sure we didn't have any more of those troubles like that, and so I had to manually unmute my mic. Man, that's unprofessional, StreamYard. That's really unprofessional. But again, thank you all for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth anywhere, bar none, on God's green earth and on social media. This is your platform for education, elevation, and empowerment. This is the Red Pill Diaries, and I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, Rashid. Now let's get it. I know it's been a while since I've been on the air, all right? But now we're on the air, and we're going to make the most of it, okay? I want to talk to you about some of the events that have been taking place. But first, I want to give a shout out to, first of all, let me make sure. Hold on one second. For one of my subscribers over on Rumble, my guy Pete Carter, shout out to you. I want to give a shout out to, give me 1 second. I want to make sure that I do this. All right, where are we at? I got a lot of tabs up, and I'm trying to go back and try to find out where we are. Hold on 1 second. And Dave Murray on YouTube, thank you guys so much for checking in on me, and thank you guys for constantly monitoring the channel. I really appreciate that. All right, thank you so much. Now let's get it. I know you want to talk about the latest events in the Red Sea. I know you want to talk about the latest events that is going on in Ukraine, and I know you want to touch on the events that are taking place in the MENA region, the Middle Eastern, North African region. And we're going to address a lot of that right here, right now, today. All right. So before we go into the U.S. and the U.K.'s bombing of the Yemeni nation, we're going to go to something that just took place. And it was just reported on Sputnik. Okay. Did I just click from it? I don't know. I'm putting up stuff for you guys. Hold on 1 second. Let me see. All right, there we are. Now, Iran's IRGC claims responsibility for missile attacks on Iraq's Erbil, or however you, that is the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan, which is it's crazy. When the United States when they deposed Saddam, they also empowered the Kurds so that they can factionalize Iraq, as they do in any state that they go to, any nation that they go to. They factionalize it so that each faction is weaker, divided than it is united. Therefore, the United States can remain a presence there, and can remain a power there, and can remain the dictator, the behind-the-scenes dictator there. Okay. Now, Iran launched missile strikes on Erbil or whatever you want to call it. All right. So, if you go to my Patreon and you go and you put in the search engine, Iran attacks northern Iraq, I have been telling you guys about this over and over and over and over and over again. Okay. The United States, Great Britain, and Israel have spy centers there. They have training facilities there where they train Kurdish rebels, right, and pro-Zionist terrorists to infiltrate the Iranian border and cause and so that they can assassinate officials of the IRGC and the military, and try to assassinate important people throughout Iran, and also so that they can bomb and destroy or damage key strategic infrastructure in Iran. They do that in Syria with the Kurds in Syria, right? They use the Kurds in Syria by promising them a homeland, even though the Kurds are not originally from Syria. They do that there. They're doing it in Turkey, their ally, and they're doing it in Iraq, and they're doing it in Iran, because Iran has a whole province of Kurds, right? Just like Iran had, just like Iraq had. And what America and Israel and the UK have been doing, they have been using this to spread terror across the region, okay? But Iran's response to this, yeah, they were hitting U.S., so quote unquote, I would say Kurdish, but you know, quote unquote, U.S., UK, and Israeli operatives in their headquarters. But also, this was a response to the U.S. and the UK's bombing of Yemen. Okay, these things are not happening out of just out of the blue. All of these things are interconnected. I keep telling you, to get a complete picture, and you only have dots, you have to connect the dots. And once you connect the dots, you see a vastly greater picture than you would have ever seen, just dot, 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 okay? So the article says this: Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps took responsibility on Tuesday for missile attacks on Iraqi Kurdistan's capital of Erbil, claiming that it targeted bases of anti-Iranian terrorist groups. Early in the day, a security source in Iraq told Sputnik that several explosions occurred in Erbil near the U.S. Consulate General and Erbil International Airport. That airport is where the U.S. transits in drugs in and out, and terrorists out. And this is where they use that as a deposit point, where they can transport ISIS to Afghanistan, to Jordanian soil, to Syrian soil, to Lebanese soil, anywhere around that. And then they'll be claiming to fight against ISIS, okay, and fight against terrorism, when we know that all of their outposts are breeding grounds for terrorism. But remember that this happens after two massive strikes on Yemen. And remember, Iran warned the U.S. and the UK, and then deployed a destroyer to the region and warned them to tread carefully with their military operations. Okay, and as a matter of fact, give me 1 second, I'll pull up something too. And as the Iranian foreign minister was meeting with the Indian foreign minister, Iran issued a stern warning to the U.S. and the UK. Iran says war against Yemen must end. Now, after stating that, the IRGC launched a massive attack, and something that you didn't know, that some U.S. Navy SEALs went missing in that region after trying to seize what they claim were Iranian weapons. Now, I want you to understand this, because this is something that if you don't understand, you'll give the U.S. a pass. You'll give the UK a pass, okay? What they were trying to seize, say for instance, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say those were Iranian weapons. Who in the hell gives them the right to do that? And look at the region where they were trying to seize it at, in the body of water where they were not trying to seize it off the coast of California or in the Gulf of Mexico or in the English Channel or off the eastern coast of the United States. They were trying to seize something that belonged to another nation near that nation's coastal waters or close proximity of that nation. They didn't have the right to do that, but they tried to, and some Navy SEALs have gone missing. Okay, so I want to direct your attention to something. Hold on 1 second. To show you how things are escalating. As a matter of fact, the UN, I think it was the Secretary General, said that things are escalating out of control. I've been telling you that this was coming. A regional war. I don't care what they say, a regional war is going to happen. It may not happen today. It may not happen tomorrow. But in a time frame that I have given to you, between now and sometime in 2025, there will be multiple wars. The MENA War, the Asia Pacific War, and then finally the U.S. versus Russia in Europe. Watch how these things play out. Come back after and tell me if I lied to you, okay? Now, there is something I want you to, man, these people lie so much they are rugs. Let me go to something. Now, I want you to see this, because you're not going to believe this. So on January 14th, right, which was yesterday, an article comes out Now, mind you, the United States has struck the Yemeni nation multiple times, and not to mention that there are still special forces of Israel, the U.S., and the U.K. illegally in Yemen. Illegally. Okay? So on January 14th, an article comes out on Russia Today. And the headline is this: U.S. denies seeking war with Yemen as new strike reported. Not old strike, but a new, meaning that there was a strike previous or prior to this one, okay? So we have to understand this. And I want to give a shout out to my guy. Let me see. I thought I just saw him in the chat. Perseverance Chameleon. I thought I saw you in the chat. Shout out to you. Now, what is important about this? You guys bear with me, okay? Bear with me, because this is very important. This headline is U.S. denies seeking war with Yemen as new strikes reported. Okay, now let's go to the dictionary. The word or the phrase act of war. And we're going to use the United States and the Western world's viewpoints on what is an act of war. Because I don't want anybody to say that, Rashid, you embellished this, you lied, you just put your opinion on this. We're going to use theirs. So you go to Google and put in the word act of war, okay? I want you to do that if you can. And then it'll say people also ask, and then it says what is considered an act of war, all right? And it says an act of war or casus belli is an action by one country against another with an intention to provoke war, or an action that occurs during a declared war or armed conflict between military forces of any origin. You say, well, the United States and the UK have not declared war on Yemen, right? That's what you say. Under UN law, the so-called international law, when a foreign nation threatens or follows through with the threat to use military action against a nation that has not threatened them, the security of their nation, that is an act of war according to international law. Okay, so let's look at this. It goes further. We go down a little bit. Follow with me. Then in the search, it says search for what is considered an act of war. And under that, it says an act of war or casus belli is supposed to be an action that justifies a military purpose. Stop right there. What is the United States and the UK saying? We're there to prevent ships from being hijacked by the Al-Nusra, or not, the Houthis, excuse me. Right? Now, the Houthis had already openly stated that they were only after preventing Israeli ships or ships that were heading to Israel to unload cargo and shipping. They did not target the U.S. They didn't target the U.K. They didn't target Europe. They didn't target Africa. They didn't target Latin America. They didn't target China. They didn't target Russia. They didn't target Asia. They specifically and openly stated that their targeted goal was Israel, in support of Palestine and the Palestinians who are being slaughtered on a daily basis by the Zionist regime. So now the U.S. and the UK are stating that they are intervening, to prevent the Houthis from attacking ships that they never said that they would attack. Okay? What did that say? An act of war or a casus belli is supposed to be an action that justifies a military response. Huh? You see, that's the definition. So we see that America has committed an act of war, and while she's committing the act of war, while the UK is committing an act of war, guess what America says to the world? We're not up for escalation. We're not trying to start a war. So you mean to tell me selling your warships off my coast, shooting through my window, killing some of my family members, destroying some of my property. It's not escalation. It's not a declaration of war. Here we go. Now, it's very, very important we understand what I just said, because the next thing that comes up is this. What does the U.S. consider an act of war? Okay? An act of war means hostile or warlike actions, whether declared or not, in a time of peace or war, whether initiated by a local government, or foreign groups, civil unrest, insurrection, rebellion, or civil war. So now, let us use what the United States considers as an act of war. An act of war means hostile or warlike actions, whether declared or not. So the United States declared that they're not up for escalation. And while the US and the UK are launching airstrikes on a sovereign nation that has not attacked them, that has not even threatened to bomb America, and they say that they're not up for war. Bizarro world, I tell you. Bizarro world. Well, up is down and down is up. In is out and out is in. And this is brought to you by the so-called rules-based international order. They think you are ignorant. I'm telling you, these people do not respect you. I'm going to continue to beat that drum. They do not respect you mentally for them to continue to say things like that. They believe that all people are lazy because they don't think that you would do your due diligence to do the research on things so they can say anything to you and you'll buy it hook, line, and sinker. That's what they do. So let's go to the article. Okay. And the article says, Washington only wants to stop Houthi militants from hitting ships in the Red Sea, the National Security Council spokesman says. Now, that's all Washington wants to do. Then why the hell you launch airstrikes? Because we're looking at the situation today and it hadn't stopped. So we can't accept your reasoning for bombing Yemen. Because prior to that, Yemen was not launching attacks on other nations' shipping. They were seizing or attacking ships that were headed toward Israel to unload cargo, weapons, and other stuff so that they can force the Israelis to stop killing the Palestinians. So what America says does not hold up under scrutiny. Okay? Let's go further. It says, Washington does not want its operation in the Red Sea to turn into a conflict. Then why the hell are you there? To turn into a conflict. All right? I want you to look at this. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, please, everybody. It's best we understand what this is. Washington does not want this thing to turn into a conflict. According to the dictionary, the word conflict, right, means a serious disagreement or argument, typically a protracted one, a dispute, a quarrel, a squabble, a disagreement, a difference of opinion, right, a clash. Now, launching missiles is not considered a conflict. Openly targeting the military of Yemen is not an act of war and not the prequel to a conflict. Huh? Because if we take the U.S.'s reasoning, we'll say, well, oh, that's not. But if we take common sense in the definition, we know that they are escalating. Hence the name of the show, riding the U.S. Western train of escalation towards war. This is what's going on. So let's go back to the article. All right. It says Washington does not want its operation in the Red Sea to turn into a conflict with Yemen. U.S. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby told CBS on Sunday. The comments came amid media reports about further strikes launched against Yemeni targets by American and British forces on the same day. Now, remember what I asked and what we talked about prior to me reading that paragraph right there. What does the United States consider an act of war? And we went over it. Now, if the United States does not want its operation in the Red Sea to turn into a conflict with Yemen, right? And yet both it and the UK continue to launch airstrikes, killing civilians and Houthi military personnel alike and destroying infrastructure, and that is not considered an act of war by the United States, then the United States should not get mad if the Yemeni nation is provided weapons by Russia and China and warships and go off the coast of the United States and return the favor. Right? If we are to be just, and if we are to follow America's guidelines, dictates, and reasoning, if the Yemeni's military decides to get ships and go off the coast of the United States and say, hey, we're not looking for escalation, and then they bomb a couple cities and say, we're not looking for war, then the United States should accept their reasoning, because their reasoning is the United States and the UK's reasoning. Right? But do you believe that America would accept that? Hell, she took the world to global war over 9/11, when we know for a fact that 19 people could not have hijacked some planes and flown them like that and disintegrated buildings in the manner that they were. And what's crazy about that is when you look at this, when you go back and you look at the situation, right? And I'm not going to get too far into that because I know YouTube will kick me clean off there. But think about this. As soon as the event was taking place, they knew every person involved. They didn't have to do any research. They knew every person involved, the family members, where they were from, all of this. And the plane didn't survive. The buildings didn't survive. The people in those buildings didn't survive. But passports survived. Paper passports survived fire that melted steel. Man, I'm talking about, bro, I'm telling you. Born at night, just not last night. So let's go further. Last week, the U.S. and the U.K. launched a military operation in the Red Sea in response to the actions of the Yemen-based Houthi Islamic group. Stop right there. The Red Sea borders Yemen. It doesn't border the U.K. It doesn't border the U.S. Right? And why would you launch operations there when they haven't attacked you or threatened to attack you at that time? You were doing that to protect your lackey in the occupied territories, right? Because you need that. Remember what Joe Biden says, if there was not an Israel, we would have to invent one for our interests in that region. That's what Biden said when he was a senator. Google it on YouTube. So it is very important for them to keep the status quo over there so that they can try to maintain dollar hegemony. This is what this is about. Dollar hegemony and keeping the people believing that those people are over there are the chosen people, when everybody knows that they're not. But let's go a little further. Okay. It says the Houthis have pledged solidarity with the Palestinians amid the conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. They have also vowed to target merchant vessels sailing through the Gulf of Aden until Israel stops its war with Hamas. Now, if the United States was not seeking escalation in war, the U.S. could have easily told Netanyahu and the Zionist regime there to stop the slaughter. And listen what they put out. See, they try to cover their tracks, but let me pull something up for you. Let me see if I can pull this up for you, because most people were buying this. And I'm listening to some of the people, especially these old heads, these alternative media organizations, and they're buying this being put out. And I'm like, huh? What? So There's an article that comes out on Sputnik in relation to what I just said to you all. And I'm drinking my mushroom coffee, so you guys, you missed a second. So the article is titled Netanyahu's refusal to follow U.S. requests, leaving Biden increasingly frustrated. Reports, these reports out the blue come, right? That gives Joe Biden cover, that gives Netanyahu cover. All right, listen what it says. And I didn't read this, I just saw the headline and I kept it. It says, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's refusal to follow the U.S. administration's request regarding Israel's military operation in the Gaza Strip is causing growing frustration on the part of U.S. President Joe Biden and other senior officials in Washington, the Axios news portal reported on Sunday, citing sources. Now, what one should go and ask the Axios news agency or portal is, how could Israel maintain its war without U.S. funding and U.S. weapons? And if they cannot, and all military analysts agree that they cannot do what they're doing without U.S. aid and cover. If Biden was so frustrated, why didn't he say, listen, man, stop it, or I'm going to cut aid to you. I'm going to cut military and political and economic aid to you. That would have stopped it, right? When Uganda didn't do what the United States says, what did the United States say? They threw them out of the little thing that they had where they were receiving aid. When anybody buck up against the United States and don't do what they're saying and they're receiving aid, guess what happened? The aid stopped, the demonization started, and eventually color revolutions of war follows. But on this issue, Biden is just frustrated. He can't do anything. Now, I want you to understand something. Let's use this in a way that most people can relate to. And let's give us an analogy. And you know, sitting before you is the king of analogies, okay? Now, say, for instance, you have four children in your household. 4, 6, 8, and 10, any age line. And the 10-year-old is rebellious. Or 16, excuse me, 16-year-old. The 16-year-old is rebellious. But the 16-year-old gets all of their clothes, their food, their water, and everything for their livelihood from mom and pops. They get to lie down in a warm bed in mom and pop's house that mom and pops pays the mortgage. They drive to school in a car that mom and pops pays for. Now, when that child gets unruly, you cut them off until they submit to your authority. Is that not right? And you'll see just how far they can go without the aid from you and your spouse. Why is that not a lesson the U.S. is employing with Israel? Because Israel gets a lot of political cover globally because of the United States and the UK. Israel maintains its economy through the gratuity of the U.S. and the UK, who continue to put their own people in debt to supply Israel with financial aid and military hardware. So if you cut them off, guess what happens? The war stops. Either they submit and they capitulate and submit, or the regime collapses. One or the other. Netanyahu could have his choice. But don't try to put this, Biden is so frustrated. The U.S. government is so frustrated. Get real, man. Stop this. Stop selling the snake oil. You're trying to give cover to Netanyahu, and you're trying to give cover to the Biden regime. But you can't do that here, because over on this platform, on this channel, we force you to think past the madness, think through the clouds of confusion and propaganda. That's why we are the best. We might not be the biggest, but we're the best. You believe that? Now let's go further. And by the way, YouTube, man, listen, you got to stop that. We've been watching it. You take 130 subscribers from us. 130 in the last week or so. Man, you got to stop this for real, on the real. But let's go a little further. The situation sucks, and we are stuck. The president's patience is running out. A U.S. official was quoted as saying by the news portal. You know why they said that? You know why? Do you remember the reports earlier? Well, Joe Biden and the U.S. administration, when they had talks with the Israelis, they said, hey, it's this limited window that you have to get this done because the world is coming against us, and we're doing our best to keep them off of you. But so we're giving you this limited window. So what that does is buy a little more time for the Zionist regime to continue the slaughter of the Palestinians and to give the United States cover, because people will say, oh, well, the United States is trying to stop this. Now, let's use common sense for a minute. Joe Biden says that, according to Axios, Joe Biden and his administration says that they're getting frustrated with Netanyahu that he won't stop operations, okay? Now, what we do know is that on a weekly basis, U.S. ships unload weapons, or U.S. ships and U.K. ships or U.K. warplanes unload cargo at the ports and at the airports, right? And we do know that the Israeli economy is in free fall, and the United States and the U.K. is the stopgap by the influx of aid to Israel, right? So you can't be too frustrated, right? If you continue to arm them, and when they're low on this, you resupply them. And when they need financial aid to keep the economy afloat, you continue to inject the economy even while your economy is floundering. You continue to inject military aid into Israel to keep it going. How the hell can that make sense? Only in Bizarro World. Huh? Shout out. My guy, Real Truth Talk, is in the building. Shout out to Real Truth Talk. One, that's my guy there. For real, that's my guy. Holly, you know you my girl. Flying Crocodile, oh my God. Flying Crocodile there. And Pedro is in the building all the way across the pond. So, again, we never sit down and we never analyze these things. We just take what they write and these news organizations or these alternative media outlets continue to inject you with propaganda. Oh, Joe Biden, we've talked to certain officials who say this, and this. You should say, okay, well, then won't you do this, and this? If he's so frustrated, stop this. Listen, if you turn the faucet off, the water stops, right? If America turns the military, political, and the economic spigot off, guess what happens? The war dries up. It won't take 2 months. It wouldn't take 2 weeks. Do you understand what I'm saying? But in a world where common sense is a valuable and priceless commodity, most people don't use their God-given ability to use common sense and think outside of the box and think outside of the propaganda. Let me say this to you all. Some of your favorite outlets are plants, because there's no way that they should miss stuff like this. No, absolutely no way. My Velcro, my mom calls my baby boy my Velcro. He's 7 years old, right? Follows me. Matter of fact, I had to shoo him out because he wanted to scream with me, right? Dad, I want to scream with you. He's up under me 24/7, you know. And my mom called him my Velcro. Even he understood some of the stuff. And you're telling me these people who get your super chats, your super thanks, your patron, your channel membership, they don't understand? Man, stop this. I did an article about how the MIC is fleecing the American people. It's on our channel. Some of these outlets are fleecing you too, because you are in love with the personality and you're not focusing on the message. Why do so many times stuff like this slip through them and go over their head and they don't address this? Because they have an interest the other way. When something is interesting to them and it's financial beneficial, when they can get 200, 300,000 views, they address it. Right? And it shouldn't be that way, because too many people's lives are at stake. Too many. We're looking at a world that is close to thermonuclear war, because we have these lunatics in Washington, these lunatics in London, and these lunatics in Brussels, Paris, and Berlin. Because they see their world order crashing. And they have it in their sick, psychopathic mind that if I can't rule, I'm killing everybody. It's a shame. CC is in the building. Thank you for joining me, CC. Seriously. And all of this stuff. We've got to address the truth, man. We got to do it. And I know I alienate people. But truth does that. Truth causes division. You know that, right? Truth unifies a solid foundation, and all that is not willing to be unified on that is divided away and pushed away from that. You know, it's real. So when we speak the truth, we speak it regardless to person. Regardless to person. Okay? You can be black as the ace of spade or white as snow. Truth is truth. And you're supposed to respect and embrace truth when it is told to you and when you know that it's the truth. Okay? So let's go a little further. It says, in particular, Israeli authorities continue to refuse to grant the Palestinian Authority access to its frozen tax revenues. Now stop right there. If Biden was frustrated about that, he could just say, listen, if you don't want to give them their frozen assets, we're not giving you financial aid. Guess who loses out the most? Israel. To the tune of billions upon billions upon billions in aid. I bet you they'll reconsider it then. You hold the purse strings. You hold the military strings. You hold the political strings, and you're telling me you're frustrated with your child that you created that won't bow to what you're saying. And the child is dependent upon you for the bill, for the light bill. The child is dependent upon you for the food and for the national security and safety of that. Man, stop this. Stop that. And you want us to believe that. Oh, man, I tell you. So the article goes further and says, without which the government of Mahmoud Abbas is unable to finance its operation, the report said. In addition, the United States expects greater efforts from Israel to ensure the flow of humanitarian aid into the enclave, the report added. Now, Mahmoud Abbas is reliant upon the fact that Israel dispersed tax revenue and revenue that is owed to the Palestinian Authority so that they can operate. How about Mahmoud Abbas grow him a pair, get him some testicular fortitude, and say, you know what, keep that. What we'll do now, we'll print our own money and we'll talk to our allies and they'll accept our currency. We don't need that no more, because he who holds the money controls the geopolitical board. Right? How about that? We'll take that as a loss. And then we'll talk to our allies to help us out, to help us with foreign currency reserves so that we can back our money by something. Other nations do it. And you telling me this is a feat too big for Mahmoud Abbas? Man, stop it. Let's go further. Netanyahu is also reluctant to seriously discuss the post-war plan of action, as well as growing concern about the Jewish state continuing the active phase of its operation without moving to a lower intensity of hostilities, the report says. Well, listen, let's reason. What did the Bible say? Come, let us reason together. And to reason, one must use God-given faculties, right? You take what you have, take what's around you, and then you analyze it, and you come to a hypothesis, an educated guess, right? Listen, if he refuses to discuss it, then you take matters in your own hand. You call the shots. You call the shots. If America were to sanction Israel right now, it would break the economy. It would break the military. It would force them to adhere and bow to the UN regulations and the UN laws that Israel keeps flaunting and has flaunted since 1947. but you need cojones for that. And that has to be a part of your desire, your will. That has to be a part of that. That has to be a part of that. Right? And it goes and says, Netanyahu is also reluctant to seriously discuss the post-war plan of action. So the post-plan of action, if they don't want to discuss it, you make the post-plan of action. And you imposed it upon Iraq. You imposed it upon Libya. You tried to impose it upon Syria. You're trying to impose it upon Ukraine. You did it to Yugoslavia. You can't do it to Israel. Huh? Who do you think you're selling this snake oil to? Oh, man, I tell you what. These people, they really believe that you are ignorant, that you are stupid. And it's crazy. And it says, as well as growing concerns about the Jewish state continuing the active phase of its operation without moving to a lower intensity of hostilities. That can be cured just like this. America stopped the spigot of weapons, bombs, warplanes, spare parts, intelligence, right? Without all of that, the military starts thinking, hey, we can't maintain this. And then with the money being cut off and the political cover being cut off, guess what happens? The genocide comes to a halt. And now you're telling me these people in Washington, D.C. and London that make the big bucks, that make and formulate policy, has not thought over that? Okay, yeah, you believe that you want to. But they're giving cover to Netanyahu to go just a little bit longer. This would make it seem like he's just rebelling against the United States. And the United States has no say when the United States has all the say. Because all the United States has to do is go to the UN and put pressure on the UN and say, well, we stand for this. And you know the United Nations will go for almost whatever the United States says. The United States stopped the funding. Israel's military comes to a halt. The United States stopped supplying bombs and intelligence and weapons to them. It comes to a halt. So evidently he's not too frustrated because he continues to dump loads and loads of money and weapons into Israel for these operations to take place. Right? Common sense, which is not so common in today's world. Right? This is your boy Rashid. I'm talking to you. I hope you talk back with me. I see the chat is jumping. I'm glad that everybody's viewing on Odyssey, Twitter, Rumble, and the Red Pill Journals and the Red Pill Diaries on YouTube. Thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it because, as I tell you all from the bottom of my heart, your time is the most precious commodity. It's a non-renewable resource. And I hope when you join me that this platform can give you some of equal or greater value, because once your time is spent, you can never get it back. Okay? Thank you all for joining me. Let's go further. All right. So we analyze these things and we bring these things to light. Right? And they want you to believe that the United States is powerless to do anything. Now, the most powerful nation, now I want you to think about something. They fund the war and the divisions in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Taiwan, all across Africa, and most of the Middle East. And then they want you to believe that they are powerless to stop Netanyahu. They want you to believe that they are powerless to stop Israel's military operation. And most people take that article from Axios and just run with it. They just go about their business, don't even dissect it, don't even read into it, use no definitions, no nothing. They ignore all of the prior writings and articles that preceded that article. And then they go on to the next one. And you say, oh, I love this show. I love that show. Oh, I love that guy. When they're fleecing you. Don't let them do that. Don't let me do that to you. Okay? Russia has one of the best slogans. The RT has one of the best slogans. Question everything. Question everything. That is one of the best slogans. Don't just take what I'm talking to you. You see, that's why I give you, if I look up something, I'll tell you how I found it. If I tell you I heard something, I try to pull up the video or the audio for you, or the audio for you, so that you can see for yourself that Rashid is not making this up. I'm not lying. I'm not embellishing this. We're looking at it like this. That empowers you. That also stops me from getting the big head and then trying to abuse the position that I have talking to you and then exploiting you. All right? And you should demand that of each and everybody that you listen to, not just of me. I do it because it's the right thing to do, because that's what I would want. If I didn't understand, if I didn't know, I would want somebody to think enough of me to treat me as they would treat themselves. You understand? How real true talk they preach, brother, man. Yeah, by Holly, you're right. Biden also said that he was a Zionist. True. So this Zionist, this man who openly proclaimed his love for the Zionists, and that he said that if there were not an Israel, America would have to go and create one for its interest in the region. You want me to believe that this guy is powerless to stop Netanyahu, this guy who gives them to the tune of $10-15 billion in money and then in weaponry, is powerless to stop this guy. And this man who gives them all of the political cover that they need in the UN and in world organizations is powerless to stop Netanyahu. Man, come on, stop. Don't do that to people's intelligence. That's not right. And Holly says it absolutely right. Israel is a U.S. base, but not just a U.S. base. Remember, whatever we say about the United States mirrors back to the U.K. They're one and the same. The United States and the U.K. are one and the same. Why do you think they're involved both in each other's escapades? They wanted you to believe that the United States was very upset with the British because the British kept talking about the bombing plans. Man, stop. You believe that? Do you? Come on. Do you believe that? Now, the United States was so upset with them that they also conducted the airstrikes with them. You believe that? That's crazy, right? Let's see. My guy Real Truth Talk says, brother, man, I'm so badly shadow banned myself. It sucks and it's discouraging. I know. It gets frustrating. It gets frustrating. And like I tell people, they do me wrong, but they also do my guy wrong too. Real Truth Talk. You know, they shadow ban us, they take us out the algorithm, they take us out the search engine, all of that stuff. All right. That's what YouTube does. They get butthurt when you're telling the truth. Okay. All right. And so let's see. Listen what Flying Crocodile 46 says. And I love what he doesn't call it YouTube. He always calls it PooTube. You know what he's talking about, right? So he says, despite confirming that I wanted a PooTube notification of this stream, I did not get it and missed the first 20 minutes. That's what he said. So you know I'm not lying when I'm telling you they're taking my subscribers, banning me, taking me out of the algorithm, and taking me out of the search engine all the time, constantly. Let's see. Look what Holly says. CNN has to go through the IDF to clear reports. How is that journalism? How is that journalism? That's propaganda. When you have to go, now you're reporting on a war that the IDF is pushing and is involved in, but you have to go through the IDF to clear what you say to get it to the people. But what if what you have to say is incriminating to the IDF? See, that's not journalism. That's propaganda. All right. Let's see. Thank you, man. Thank you, Real Truth. He says my stream is running good. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Holly says the same thing. I appreciate that. Let's go. It's something else I wanted to bring to light. There's an article on Breaking Defense, right? And this article, the headline is this: strikes in Yemen may be first for US and UK, but not designed to escalate. I want you to understand, these people do not respect you to write a headline like this. Let's look at the headline. Strikes in Yemen may be first for US and UK. They didn't say it was a one-off. They said it might be the first. And we already know that they've had another strike, right? So it says strikes in Yemen may be first for US, UK. But not designed to escalate conflict. And what the hell is escalation then? Tell me that. If you bombed me and I didn't do anything to you, that's an act of war. If you bomb me again, that's escalation. If you bomb me again, that's steady escalation. If you start deploying troops and warplanes and warships there, that's escalation. But only in bizarro America, in the UK, in the bizarro West, is that not escalation, unless it happens to them. If Russia deploys a warship, not even close to the United States water, just say if they go on a friendly voyage to Venezuela or Panama or Bolivia, or go to Cuba. Oh, Russia is being very aggressive in the Western hemisphere, right? If Russia sails a warship through the English Channel, Russia is being belligerent and aggressive, right? They didn't drop a bomb now. They didn't shoot a bullet. They didn't even spit in the direction of the US or the UK. And that's aggressive and belligerent. The United States and the UK are, and they're stating this openly, airstrikes against Yemen. And that's not designed for escalation. And even while they tell you with the deployment of US and UK warships, and then Germany comes out and says, we may deploy warships there. And France is saying, we may deploy war. That's not escalation. Even though all of those nations are members of the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization, the largest and the greatest terror organization ever comprised, NATO. That's not escalation. But what Russia is doing in Ukraine to defend its sovereignty and its livelihood, that's escalation. Not the United States funding Ukraine and the Nazis, not the United States and the UK carrying out covert operations to sabotage industries in Russia and to sabotage infrastructure and to arm Ukraine with missiles and warships and warplanes. That's not escalation. Russia defending itself is escalation. Bizarro world, I'm telling you all. Bizarro world. And it goes further and says this. And hold on one second. Let me check out something before I go further in this, because I'm missing something. Something just disappeared on my screen. Give me 1 second. I want to give a shout out to those who are watching on Rumble too. That's why I just went over there for a second, because my screen disappeared over there. But let's see, where is it at? Where did I just have it? Okay, here we are. So I want you to look at it. It says, man, this is crazy. I'm just looking at this. And I cannot believe that they say this stuff and get away with it from you. Now think about it. Oh, also want to talk on China too, and the elections in Taiwan, because we need to address that shortly too. And that's the precursor to that war that's coming in Asia. Okay, but I want to get to something. I just lost the page to it. Here we are, the Breaking Defense page. The article goes on and says, Bryden Sperling, senior research leader for defense and security at RAND, said that there was clearly reluctance. Listen to this part. That there was clearly reluctance on the part of Washington and London to strike the Houthis, despite the threats they pose to one of the world's most important waterways. Now stop right there. Reluctance. Did reluctance stop them from bombing them? They didn't bomb them once. They bombed them. If they would have bombed them once, maybe we could have. Maybe they were reluctant. They bombed them twice that we know of. And you're still trying to feed us that, saying that they were reluctant to do it. Not once, but twice. If I bump into you once You may say, and I say, excuse me, you may think that's an accident. But if I continue to bump into you, you'll know for certain that that's on purpose. Right? Right? Common sense. So, and it says, Bryden Sperling, senior research leader for defense and security at RAND, said that there was clearly reluctance on the part of Washington and London to strike the Houthis, despite the threat they pose to one of the world's most important waterways. Now, what's important about that is that waterway is nowhere near England or the UK. That waterway is nowhere near the United States. That waterway is right off the coast of Yemen. Why didn't that article put that in there? Because they're trying to mold and fashion a perspective and then force feed it to the reader. That's what that is. That America and London are justified, and they're not seeking war. They're not seeking escalation. Though they're bombing these people, killing them, destroying infrastructure, and committing acts of war, they are not purposely trying to make war with them or escalate in any manner. It is the Houthis who are called to this, even though the Houthis never attacked London or Washington. See? The victim becomes the aggressor, and the aggressor becomes the victim in bizarro world. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? So let's go a little further here. Let's see what they got to say here, because I didn't read this. It says, the decision by the U.S. and UK to launch air and naval-based strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen, they didn't say to launch them in London or the UK. They didn't say to launch them in Washington, D.C. or the U.S. They say that they launched them in Yemen. Well, what's significant about that? Because the Houthis are from Yemen. Did the Houthis attack America proper? No. Did the Houthis attack the UK proper? No. Right? But the way they're fashioning the article is to make you think that the Houthis are the aggressor. It says, the decision by the US and the UK to launch air and naval-based strikes. So they didn't just launch air strikes, they launched sea strikes too. So how can the US be reluctant and launch both air and sea strikes? How can the US be reluctant and the UK be reluctant to do it not once but twice? And how can this not be escalation or deemed as an act of war? Will America allow them to do that to them? Will the UK allow them to do that to them? No. Guess what they would say? That's an act of war. But it's not an act of war if they do it. Do as I say, but not as I do. And that is the mind state of the empire. Okay? I make the rules and you obey the rules. When I bomb you and kill you, it is for a good cause. But when you defend yourself, you are insurgents, rebels, militias. They don't even refer to the Houthis as the military of Yemen. See, when you remove that title, it delegitimizes the cause of the Yemeni people. But they don't tell you that the Houthis are the military of Yemen. Right? Man, I'm telling you, boy, I tell you what. These propagandists are something else. They're something else. They can make you believe that when the sky is blue, it's absolutely purple. When it's raining, man, it's snowing outside. That's how good their propaganda is. And the propaganda is so good that you can grow up knowing a person. I'm gonna show you how good propaganda is for the West. You can grow up knowing a person. They can be your kin. And you can respect them, and they've shown nothing but love to you and people that they know. And the news can put up that they are a rapist, a molester, or this and that. And guess what? You run with the news narrative. You disregard your whole history with that person. Because the propagandist now seizes the opportunity to infiltrate your mind and turn you against the person that you have a history with your whole life. That's how good the propagandists of the West are. That's how good they are. So it goes further and says this. Let's see. It says, the decision by the U.S. and the UK to launch air and naval-based strikes against Houthis targets in Yemen may be a first since the outbreak of the current Gaza conflict in Gaza. But also, but analysts, and I got something on my screen, so you got to excuse me. There's a chip right there, okay? So you got to excuse me. Sometimes I'll see a word in this in two because this was damaged, okay? And I'm waiting for my other new one to come with this new one right here in front of me. So listen, it says, but analysts told Breaking Defense it appears to be designed not to provoke a wider regional war. Now, everybody, listen to me good. As I often say to you all, I might not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I'm not a spoon, a fork, or a butter knife. How is killing citizens of the Yemeni nation, killing soldiers of the Yemeni armed forces, bombing infrastructure of a sovereign nation not designed to escalate or take a nation to war? Make that make sense. Did America say that when them buildings collapsed? When 3,000 people were killed? You couldn't even talk to her rationally. She had to get her get back. Right? Not only did she have to get her get back, she told the entire world this. Let me tell you how arrogant the empire is. You're either with us or against us. Think about that. A nation armed with thousands of nuclear weapons, enraged, and telling every nation on earth, either you are with us or against us, and then telling Pakistan, you either let us in and use these bases to attack your tribal brothers, or we're going to bomb you into the Stone Age. And we have the legitimacy to do it because now we have the sympathy of the world. That's not what they're doing to the Houthis, which is greater because they're losing more and they have less. That's not an act of war. That's not designed for escalation. You believe that? I don't understand how this can just go over people's heads. I don't understand that. I don't understand how they want to address these things and they let this stuff go. Because when you let foolishness go, people tend to gravitate towards foolishness. And then even though it's not true, it becomes a fact in their mind. And so, that's a piece of the foundation laid by the propagandists. And each time they lay this down in the media, guess what? It's another block to the house of propaganda. And then once they construct a narrative, it's hard to get a person to ignore that narrative or to shun that narrative because they have been accepting each block of that narrative until it built that whole narrative up. And they won't address this. They won't address this. Let me go in. I see the comments are jumping. Nettie is in the building. My God, Nettie is in the building. Ping one salute. Let's see. Joel Bradford is in the building. I'm trying to read this article, but I saw that I had 117 comments that I did not check, so that's why I immediately looked down. I'm sorry. Let's see. I want to, before we go on to this China thing, I want to show you the contempt, because we're talking about the contempt for your intelligence, okay? And I want to show you the contempt. And since we have a nice audience in here, right? My dashboard, let me look at my YouTube dashboard, because for you it's different. Let me look at my YouTube dashboard, and I know after the show it'll say 3. All right, it'll say 3. But I know what I'm looking at. I ought to take a picture and show you guys afterwards. Let's see something, because it says my chat ended on YouTube. Hold on one second. What in the world? Okay, now it's back up. I have excellent connection, and I want to take you all, since we have a nice audience. And it says I have 79 people. Okay, all right. 79 people watching on YouTube on the Red Pill Diaries. Let me look at the Red Pill Journals real quick. and I rarely even promote that. Man, I cannot even get on that without switching members. I won't do that right now. Let me go to Odyssey real quick. I don't want Odyssey to be left out. Hold on one second. Give me a second. Give a shout out to my people that's riding with me over there on Rumble constantly. Thank you so much. Let's go to something. Because this touches the corruption, this touches the contempt for you. And my brother, he's a veteran, right? And my uncle, sir, had a tour in Vietnam. My niece, it's like my father's father is buried on the NAS base. He was in the Navy. So every 3 or 4 people in my family, my uncle Eddie, retired Navy. My niece Brianna, Navy. All of this stuff. So some of this stuff comes right back to me, and I have to address it because they'll ask. Some people are asking. My cousin Daryl, retired Army. My cousin DeLon, Army. I mean, we can go on and 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 on this, because honestly, in America, in the inner city, that's the one escape valve from poverty. It's the military, right? So that's what some of them went in there for, to escape and to get money to go to college and stuff like that. I want to touch on something. Remember a few shows ago, I was telling you about how the U.S. has contempt for those people who took up arms for the nation, and how those people are being misused and abused by the system and by the government, and how they are disrespecting veterans, and how they just ignore the suffering of U.S. veterans, right? Remember, I was telling you guys about that. And I told you, I said, I got it somewhere, and I'm going to pull some of this stuff up. And so I thought about it. I said, you know what? I can't find the articles. I have to look through my emails and find the articles, but I do have some clips. Okay? And I want you to see now, and for those of you who are ex-military, retired military, currently in the military, I want you to see something. Because this thing that they give you about democracy and fighting for your nation, all of that is a crock, bro. I'm telling you this. And so they try to inundate you with patriotism when they are the most unpatriotic. Because why would a veteran be forced to choose between medicine and his living arrangements or her living arrangements? Why would a veteran even have to concern themselves with living on the street or dealing with mental issues that blew back their time in the military? Why would they have to go through some of the things that they have to go through when they were the ones who got in uniform when the congressman wouldn't do it and say that, hey, I'll defend the country. I'll give my life for it. But if I give my life for it, you got to take care of me and my family because, hey, you're not willing to do it. And then you hear all the gung-ho Republicans and Democrats and independents, you got to be patriotic for America, right? And then they implement policies which are detrimental to those who are in uniform and who are in uniform, right? And so I want to show you the hypocrisy of your nation, right? And this is helping to pull down some of the columns in the American empire. Hold on one second. This thing is starting to get crazy, okay? And so I just want you all to bear with me. And this is a sign of the growing rot of the American empire. This is a sign of the decay in morality and ethics. And this is a total disrespect for those who are willing to lay down their lives for what those people in Washington, D.C. said was the cause. Okay? So I want you to pay close attention to this. We're going to start here first, and then we're going to play 2 clips. And this will show you the contempt that they have for you. Why would a veteran even have to concern themselves with this. Let's go with the short one first.
They served our country. Now thousands of veterans are being served a bill because of government oversight. Thanks for joining us for 10 Tampa Bay at 6. I'm Dave Wagner.
And I'm Carolina Lead. Right now, many low-income veterans receiving pension payments from the VA are being hit with letters saying they need to pay back thousands and thousands of dollars.
10 Tampa Bay's Aaron Parsician shares the story of a local Marine who reached out to 10 Tampa Bay saying he'll be underwater if forced to pay what he's told he owes.
Simplify. Patrick McFeely is one of the few and the proud. Outside his Sarasota County mobile home waves the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor alongside the flag he signed up to defend.
My partner passed away, so I came down here, and I love it down here.
The Marine Corps veteran makes ends meet with pension payments from the VA and, after he turned 62, Social Security.
It was like $2,400 a month.
Not a lot, but enough to get by. And things were fine until a few weeks ago when he got a letter in the mail.
Your entitlement to compensation and pension benefits has changed. As a result, you were paid $108,000 more than you were entitled to receive.
The Department of Veterans Affairs says McFeely was overpaid more than $100,000, and they will withhold money each month to pay back his debt.
And so when I called, and all I got to run around and saying that it's because I collected Social Security, and they didn't know it. And they said I didn't report it, but when it's documented that they know I was collecting Social Security at the time.
On top of that, the VA notified him nearly 10 years after he began collecting Social Security. Every year, overpayments to Pat ticked up roughly $10,000. Throughout, he had no idea there was any issue.
I'm hand to mouth, and I'm going to be 72 in January, so it's a little bit late to try to collect $108,000 from me.
So why did it take the VA so long to tell him he was being overpaid? In a statement, the department tells me from 2011 to 2022, 11 years, they were unable to reliably verify veterans' income due to data discrepancies. In 2022, when they were finally able to, they determined nearly 10,000 vets were overpaid. In many cases, like McFeely's, it spanned years.
At the bottom of this letter, it says how to manage financial stress. So now they want me to contact suicide hotline, which is crazy. They're the one that put me in this situation.
The VA says they recognize the hardship this may cause, and because of it, are pausing collection until they determine a path forward and pursue options for relief.
Well, what can be done is putting reforms in place to ensure that this just doesn't happen from the beginning.
Congressman Greg Stubbe, an Army veteran, has grilled Social Security over these overpayment issues and says the federal agencies are the ones at fault.
And this is a mistake that the agencies are making. Why is it on the onus of the service member who, through no fault of their own, didn't know they assumed these payments were correct, and now all of a sudden they got to cut a check for $120,000?
And he took the words out of McFeely's mouth, which will be hard to feed if the VA expects him to pay what they say he still owes after serving.
I don't think this is right the way they treat people, though. Too much red tape.
In Northport, Aaron Parsician, 10 Tampa Bay.
Now, the VA says they are also putting a pause establishing debts for other vets who have been overpaid, approximately 30,000 of them. We connected McFeely with Congressman Stubbe's office to see if there's a faster path to relief. In the meantime, though, the debts won't be collected. Patrick reached out to us to share this story. If you have a story that you would like us to pursue, email us at tips@10tampabay.com.
You think that's it? You must don't know this show very well. So we're going to go into it a little bit more. But notice they didn't say that they were going to stop this stuff. They said they were going to put a pause to it. According to the dictionary, the word pause is a verb. It means interrupt action or speech briefly. To stop, cease, halt, discontinue, break off, to take a break, right? A cessation. Now, we can't say that the definition applies to stop because they said they were trying to find a way to make the payments payable, right? But they didn't say they were going to completely stop the payment. So that right there goes out the window. So they were not going to cease it. They're just halting it temporarily. Okay. Now, here's the kicker. Let's just say that serviceman or servicewoman served in that military and they were getting $2,000 a month, right? And then after they got out, the government paid them $2,000, but then paid them an extra $2,000 a month mistakenly First of all, it's the government's fault. Second of all, they should have paid them $20,000 if you're willing to lay down your life. How is it that the generals can make $400,000 or $500,000 a year, right? And these people who are doing the grunt work, and then when they get out of the military, they have to deal with this. Man, stop. This is what I'm telling you. America is preparing for a war at home. This is what I'm telling you. Think about this. These people have given their all, right, for the cause, right? And America is showing the contempt that they have for the people who are willing to sacrifice their very lives. What did Jesus say? There's no greater sacrifice than for a man or woman to lay down their life, right? Right? So now these people were willing to do that. And then the government spits in their face and tells you owe us. How the hell do I owe you? How the hell do they owe you? You owe them. So if you gave them an extra $20,000 a month, you should have gave them 30. How is it that you are so concerned with them getting an extra $500 or extra $1,000 a month, which they say they're looking into 30,000 of those people, right? Which makes it about $1.2, $1.5 billion. That's not even 1% of what you gave Ukraine. So you're willing to pay the pensions of the Ukrainians. You're willing to pay the government of Ukraine. You're willing to pay for the upkeep of the government functions in Ukraine. And then you're taxing the hell out of the people who are willing to die for you. This is a war at home. These people, these veterans were trained to defend their country. They were trained for war. And when they come back, they realize they have nothing to fight for. You're taking everything from me, and I'm out on the street, or I'm next to being out on the street. I can barely afford medicine, Medicaid, Medicare. I can barely afford a house to live in. My family is facing eviction or foreclosure. This feeds into those smoldering embers of dissatisfaction. And now you have a war at home if it continues. These people are start thinking about, hey, I gave my all for them. I gave the best years of my life for them. And they're taxing me and my family and about to put us on the street because you are greedy. How is it that Nancy Pelosi never did anything and she became a multi-millionaire off of insider trading? Nobody says anything about that. Huh? Talk to me. Talk to me. I'm telling you, this is a nuclear bomb at the base of American society. This is what I'm telling you. And if this continues to go like this, those veterans who are trained for war are going to start saying, you know what, maybe it's better, and I'm not advocating this, I'm just saying the thought, maybe it's better now we do a revolution and get rid of those corrupt people in office and redo the whole thing. All right? I'm telling you this, I'm saying this as a warning to DC. You better think and have a second and third thought about how you treat those people who are willing to lay down their lives for you. And then you fighting wars abroad, right? And you're funding militias all around the world and color revolutions, which would take not even a 1% of what you're giving them to keep your veterans in houses, to keep your veterans eating, to keep their family from begging. War at home, I'm telling you. Let's look a little bit further. I told you we were going to address this. And from the chat, people are pissed by what they just saw up there. You know, they are mad and they are in agreement with everything that I'm saying and everything that I'm showing you. All right? So let's look at this second clip on here.
You know, thousands of military veterans in this country start the new year with a big worry. Where will they find the money to pay back disability benefits sent to them by mistake over the years?
The VA says the blame is largely theirs for not properly monitoring the program. Fox 5 IT reporter Randy Travis says it's put a Griffin man in a frustrating predicament. Randy.
That's right, Courtney. Yeah, Roland Taylor said it was not even his idea to apply for these non-service related disability benefits. But a decade ago, the VA said he qualified. Now they say he never was, and they wanted to pay back more than $100,000.
Now let me look at this here closer.
Can you see okay?
No, but I'm looking.
It takes extra effort for Roland Taylor to see anything important these days. Glaucoma left the Vietnam veteran legally blind years ago. But there are words and numbers you sometimes wish you never saw, like you owe the VA $120,000.
They done paid you too much, and they didn't realize it at that time, and now they're gonna blame it on you to get it back.
Taylor was living in Louisville, Kentucky back in 2012 when he stopped in to one of the many VFW chapters around the country. He says his fellow veterans noticed his blindness and urged him to apply for non-service related disability benefits from the VA. He says they helped him fill out the paperwork, and he eventually started getting $1,000 a month, more than double what he was already collecting from Social Security disability. Life got a lot better for Taylor, now 74, who earned a Bronze Star in Vietnam.
I was able to live like people. I felt like I was winning then.
He even felt like he had enough money to remarry. But when Taylor sent the VA his updated marital status, that started a review of his benefits and eventually a ruling. The couple made too much money to qualify for the VA disability program.
I wasn't hiding nothing. Maybe I should have kept my mouth shut. I'd still be getting it all. Then I got me for fraud, then, see.
His wife doesn't make much as a certified nursing assistant. Without that extra $1,000 a month, Taylor said they were forced to move into the cinder block rental house. But then came the letter he struggled to understand. His original application did not mention that he was already receiving disability benefits from Social Security, something Taylor didn't realize was an issue. He never should have received any disability money from the VA, and they want it all back.
$120,000. You got that?
But I ain't got $20. What are you talking about?
We're not collecting them for now.
In this Veterans Day news conference last year, VA Secretary Dennis McDonough said the government is still deciding how much money veterans should return.
We're going to study very closely whether that set of policy steps that were taken should be, made whole by the veterans, or whether we, if it was indeed VA that made the faulty calculations, whether we should take care of that.
This is my area right here. This is her chair, and that's my chair.
The VA says 9,900 vets like Taylor wait for an answer this year as to how much they'll have to pay back.
All these little drawers here got every medicine I take, and they're full of them.
Another 30,000 veterans could also wind up owing as well. The VA is still trying to figure that out. As for Taylor, he says he's adjusted to life without that money. He just can't see a life paying it all back.
All I want to do is to not owe them.
Well, again, the VA has temporarily paused all collection efforts while it tries to decide how much blame rests with the veterans and how much with them for not better monitoring the program. And he said that he told someone else to fill out the paperwork, and he told them, back in 2012 that he was getting disability payments from Social Security, but the guy is legally blind and couldn't see the application. Doesn't excuse the other 10,000 or so who are also on this list.
My goodness, $120,000 would be a lot of money to come up with for most people, let alone a 74-year-old veteran. But I mean, this could be affecting thousands of people, as you mentioned, Randy. Do we know the sum total of how much money could be out there that these vets would have to pay back?
Yeah, I asked that question, and the VA says they don't have that answer, but you can do some math. If all 10,000 or so owe the same amount that Mr. Taylor does, we're talking $1.2 billion here.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Talking some serious money.
Yeah, well, Mr. Taylor served his country. There's no way he's paying that back. He shouldn't have that hanging over his head for the rest of his life.
But it's hanging over his head right now, even though it's been suspended.
Yeah.
Randy, thanks.
Okay.
$1.2 billion. They've given Ukraine over $200 billion that we know of. That's not even 1% of what they've given Ukraine, and they're screaming about it. And then the secretary or whoever that guy was talking, he said something that might have went over you guys' head. It might have gone over your head, but it didn't go over mine because I caught exactly what he said. When they asked him about the situation, he said that the veteran has to make the situation whole again. He didn't say the VA. He didn't say the U.S. government. He didn't say the U.S. Treasury. He said the veteran, you know, the one that went on all of these deployments and all of these tours of duty, the one that stood up and swore on the Constitution to defend America against any enemy domestically or internationally. You know, that person right there, that person has to make it whole. Not the one in office, not the one counting the money, not the one that's corrupt and getting insider trading, but the one who was willing to die. That's the one that's got to make it whole. And I was looking, as he was talking, I was looking at what that phrase would mean. And that phrase means, it says it's a transitive or set phrase. It means to restore someone or something to a sound, healthy, or otherwise favorable condition. Now, listen to this. These people barely are making it. They if you cut whatever they got, they've got to cut out a large part of their livelihood, right? And then the government puts the onus on them to make the thing right, to make it whole again. These people who are willing to give their whole, not half of their life, not a third of their life, but the whole life, have to make the situation that the government messed up whole again. Huh? And you're telling me this is not a precursor to war at home? I was checking the comments while they were talking, and I saw what Mehdi said. He's already there. I saw it. And Incognito, I see you in the building too. I didn't mention you because I was in the middle of a thought, but shout out for you for joining us and everything. And they're in there. Zelensky, Ping One says Zelensky is rich. Of course he is. And all of his mansions in Miami and all across Europe and the United States, and all of the money that they've stolen out of the 20 billion plus, 200 billion plus. Remember, it goes back to what I told you guys. See, we're in the fall of America. Most people don't want to acknowledge this. But if you have cancer, or the best way to fight that cancer is first to acknowledge that you have it. And then you do the research on the best way to fight that disease, to isolate it, and then to attack it so that it does not latch onto your life and then starts to suck away your life. Now, look at this. Forgive the debt. Ping One says, forgive the debt. What debt? What? Hold on one second. I understand what you're saying, Ping One, but what debt? To forgive the debt. Again, look, let's go to something. If a person is willing to give you their life to secure you and your family at home, they shouldn't have incurred any debt anyhow, because you weren't willing to do it. You understand? This is what when I say you, I'm not talking about you, Ping One. I'm talking about the government itself, right? So how can you, first of all, look at this. They've saddled the students with unpayable debt to the tune of trillions of dollars. These are your future lawyers, doctors, officers, scientists, engineers, politicians. These people right here have been saddled with debt that they cannot pay. That is a nuclear bomb at the base of civilization, because if you saddle your future, your present and your future generations with debt, unpayable debt, they cannot focus on the prosperity and the enlightenment of the nation. That means instead of progressing, you digress, right? And on top of that, you're going to saddle the people who are willing to die to keep the security of the nation with debt. The only people who are not saddled with the debt are the corrupt policymakers up in Washington, D.C. Do you not see that that's leading to a war at home? Huh? Because people are fed up. And what did Gerald Celente says? When people lose everything, they lose it. And I see it. I hear the rumblings in the streets. I talk to people on a daily basis. I'm a very good and astute observer of what's going on. And if the people in power can't see this, guess what happens? Boom goes the dynamite. There are embers smoldering right now. Right now. All it takes is a little wind to turn it into a fire. And it'll engulf the entire nation because of the situation that is at hand. The rich gets richer. The poor gets poor. And those who are in between gets crushed too. You believe that that's going to continue in perpetuity? Huh? what it says let me look. It says they're talking about the vets and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, they still have pockets full of money, and you know, but again, what else can you expect from a corrupt system? I continue to tell you that the system is predatory, and what it is doing right now is feeding upon the very people who maintain the system, whether they were knowledgeable about it or ignorant about it. The system has to feed on something to live. And what it is doing is running out of hosts, so it is turning inwardly to feast upon those people who took up arms to protect the system. And so this is causing anger and consternation and outrage among those people who were in uniform. It's causing anger and rebellion in the people who went to college, thinking that going to college would further them to get a better job so that they can prosper and live that life. Do you see all of these black swans building up at home while America is abroad? We then have a war at home, right? And then when the war at home happens, people will try to fashion out governments the best way they see. Right? That's common sense. Because what we see now is the people thinking about the freedoms and the things that they used to have and used to enjoy. And they see that it's being washed away by the policies of the inept, greedy, and corrupt leadership in Washington, D.C. Yeah, let me look down here real quick. Man, the chat is jumping. Let's see. Somebody brought up Lyra. Yeah, I don't know much about that. I saw his father, Danilo Lyra, on there, and I saw multiple people talking about he passed away. I won't make a public comment on that because there's a few variables that are still outstanding that I gotta I have to see first, okay? And so I don't speak on things that I don't have a lot of information on. Okay. I don't do that just to talk. I don't do that just to get views or clicks. I won't do that. I'll speak on it when I got those other variables at hand, and then I can make an educated assumption or guess about what actually happened. You know, because sitting in this position and being able to talk to you guys, I would be remiss if I took this position lightly, because I can influence people one way or the other sometimes, and I don't want to influence you in the wrong way. I can't do that. I won't do that. I will not do that. You know, I would rather be quiet on that issue there. But you see the situation at hand. You see, and again, to prove to you what I'm saying about the system and its predatory nature, and how now it is feeding upon the very people that protected it, and it is feeding upon everybody. It has to wage war. It has to. Listen to me good. I know some of you say, well, we could bring those soldiers back home and we can invest the money. What money? What money? The system is predatory by nature. I call it Nosferatu or Count Dracula. Because you know what Count Dracula was? He was a vampire. And what do vampires do? They latch a hold to a host and suck the life's blood out of the host to sustain and maintain their livelihood and their way of life, right? That's what the system does. So I want you to listen to this clip. This is a clip of an interview I did with Alex Craner, okay? And I want you to hear what he has to say about the US-UK-led rules-based international order and its predatory nature and why it must wage war, okay? I want you to listen to this.
For you and I, and for any ordinary person and ordinary business in the country, and, you know, I'm not in the United States, but, you know, the same principle applies everywhere. You know, we could all get along really well, trade with one another, because there's stuff I would like to buy from American businesses, And there is stuff that American people would like to buy from, France, Croatia, China, wherever. And in that case, we could simply live in peace and trade with each other. And, if somebody spent too much and produced too little, their currency would get punished, their credit rating would get punished, exporting countries would be hesitant to export their goods to them because they would worry about getting paid and so forth. And then that country would have to maybe tighten the belt and improve their production or reduce their imports and basic economic policy. The problem is that what you and I think about these things and the way you and I would deal with these problems is not the same when it comes to the imperial factions, which are basically the very narrow networks of powers that are clustered around the global banking cartel and the mega corporations that have grown up around them. Now, banking and empire usually go together, particularly the kind of banking and the kind of monetary system that we have in place today. And I'll try to explain in as simple terms as I can think of it. Basically, today's monetary system is, we have fiat currencies backed by nothing other than, trust and confidence. And we have fractional reserve banking, okay? All the money that goes into circulation represents debt. If there were no debt in the system, there would be no money in the system, zero, not a single dollar. And so for any money to be in circulation, somebody has to go into debt. Debt becomes assets on the books of the banks. So the banks, your debt is banks' assets. Your liability, right? That's the bank's assets. Now, given that the debt has to be paid back with interest, but only the principal goes into circulation, the whole system functions like a large Ponzi scheme, because the only way that you can pay your debt plus interest is to earn it from other people who have to go into debt for whatever reason, for consumption, for mortgages, for business development, for infrastructure development, whatever. But people have to keep going into debt, and the system is only stable for as long as it grows. So that's why we have this imperative of always growing the economy, the GDP growth. Even when everybody's satisfied, everybody has everything they need, and maybe they only need to make minor purchases, there's always this imperative for the whole system to grow so that people go more into debt and buy more crap so that more crap can be produced. And the government has to keep going deeper and deeper into debt. That's symptomatic. That's across the world. Every government, every nation that has this monetary system in place. And that's pretty much all nations in the world today. Now, what happens is that at a certain point, the system is saturated, right? Everybody maxes out on debt. You don't need more stuff. You don't need to go into debt to buy more stuff. And at that point, the system would begin to implode on itself because it's no longer growing. And at that point, what you need is to expand basically by taking other nations' resources as collateral. Because remember also, you can only grow the credit cycle for as long as you can keep adding healthy money, good collateral into the system. And once everybody's maxed out domestically, there's no further collateral that can be added to keep the system going. Or, maybe it's not enough, maybe it's too marginal. And at that point, if the Middle Eastern countries have plenty of oil, well, why not turn that oil into our collateral, and then our corporations can get into debt with our banks against that oil as collateral. Ditto for GMO crops, ditto for gold mines, silver mines, coffee, cocoa plantations everywhere. So this banking system creates an incentive for nations that embrace it to become empires. Now, it's not a given that it has to be military expansionism, because in other nations, for example, I grew up in the communist Yugoslavia, same money system, same thing. The government was spending on big monuments, giving people high salaries, employing everybody. And the effect was the same. The system was unsustainable. But in the West, particularly Great Britain and the United States, the system has tended to go towards military interventionism and the expansion of empire. And this is what United States has adopted from its predecessor, which is the British Empire, which, once it began to collapse at the turn of last century, at the turn of the 20th century, 100 years ago or so, the British establishment simply decided to transfer its seat of power to Washington and New York to infiltrate and co-opt the democratic system of governance on the United States, and to help themselves to the wealth and military and diplomatic and political power of the United States to continue expanding their empire and to take all other nations' resources as collateral and to use all other nations' populations as a source of cheap labor. And that's where we're at today. So that's why for them, this logic of let's all get along and trade with each other, for them that doesn't work. They want other nations' collateral so that their money system can keep from imploding.
So, and if you want to see that interview, it's on the channel with Alex Craner. It's an excellent interview. I advise all of you to go check that out. But he talked about the system being a Ponzi scheme, and according to the dictionary, it says a Ponzi scheme is an investment fraud that pays existing investors with funds collected from new investors. Ponzi scheme organizers often promise to invest your money and generate higher returns with little or no risk. But in many Ponzi schemes, the fraudsters do not invest the money. They steal it. That's what they do. And they keep this hot potato game going, right? And so as we listened to him, it brought to mind what I was talking about how a parasite is. Let's go to something real quick. According to the dictionary, the word parasite, and I know some of you guys get tired of the dictionary, but the only way to truly understand the situation is to understand the words. And when you understand the meaning of the words, you can then comprehend the situation and what people are actually saying to you. It is very important. It is absolutely paramount that you understand the words, because if you don't, they'll talk over you. Okay? And it says parasite, which is a noun. A parasite is an organism that lives in or on an organism of another species. It is host and benefits by deriving nutrients at the other's expense. So if we look at that and we put that right to what a vampire is, they're one and the same. What does a vampire do? It latches on to victims, sucks the life's blood out for their benefit and to the host's detriment, right? They become, we call vampires predatory. Right? And according to the dictionary, the word predatory is an adjective, and it means relating to or denoting an animal or animals preying naturally on others. So it says it's exploitive, right? Greedy, acquisitive, avaricious, rapacious, wolfish. That's what the system is, and that's why it is now turning in on the very people who once protected the system. That's why it has no respect of the middle or lower classes of people. All it is about is me, 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 those at the top. I gotta get mine. Even at the expense of the masses, I'm going to live the life that I want, and I'm going to have the power that I want at everybody's expense. And I dare you to stop me. That's what you see going on in the Western world. They've latched on to Africa, Latin America. They've latched on to certain parts of Europe. And now they're trying to latch on to Asia because they need to expand. They need more bodies to suck the life's blood out. And if they don't, what did he say happens? It implodes. Therefore, you see why the United States sent dignitaries to Taiwan and they co-opted the elections there. You know how America likes to say, oh, Trump was a puppet. Oh, Trump this and Trump that. And he was a Russian stooge. And Russia played a big part in our elections. All while overthrowing other people. All while bribing other nations. All while ignoring the rule of law in other nations. That's the Western world. And that's why it is under tremendous strain. That is why it is imploding and falling upon itself. Because the weight that is on its back is an unbearable load for the empire. The empire's legs are weak. The empire's days have been long, so it is old now. And it can't fight the fight that it once fought because it has no resources like it once had. And it no longer carries and instills the fear that it once instilled into the people. And now you have young bucks rising up saying, hey, you're not doing me this way. Even if it takes you to destroy me, I'm a execute unacceptable damage on you, where if I go down, guess what? I won't leave you in a position to rule the world. Because to leave you in a position to rule is damaging and a detriment to all of the other nations that are trying to exist and survive and trying to move outside of the scope of the rules-based order. On that note, thank each and every one of you for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth bar none anywhere on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, liberation, and upliftment. This is the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, friend, and brother Rashid. Join us as we'll be streaming all week long, giving you the deep insight on all of the breaking news that everybody else leaves off. I go out the same way that I always come in with love and peace in my heart for each and every one of you who love truth and peace. But know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that the true and divine Creator has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. And hit that like button and share. Hit the like button and share. Hit that like button and share. Let's beat the algorithm. And remember what I just said. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, remember this one thing: stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy still loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. We out. I thank you.